Hi, everybody. Good morning. Welcome over to our Linden Ponds experience. This room's a reminder, it's a larger room than we usually use, and we had the opportunity to be in here a few years ago. My name's Jeff Toccio. I'm the chairperson of the Hingham Business Council. But the last time we were in here, we were working with the town with Katie Lacey, with Ted Alexiadis, and we were going through, and we were actually able to engage in a zoning study over up in my neck of the woods, over near the what is now the Bone and Muscle Center, and we were actually able to work with the town and get some work accomplished. And the large room, speaks to the involvement that we had at that time, and that was something which was very successful this morning. What we're doing is we've got Mary Savage Dunham, who's the Director of Community Planning for the town of Hingham, and Hingham's going through their master plan process. So we'll be talking about that. So it's another opportunity for this group to weigh in and have a voice in that process. I'd like to thank the Linden Ponds group for making their rooms available to us, which is something that is a huge asset for us. It's a great location. They've got these wonderful rooms that are available, and we do appreciate that. The sponsors this morning, we've got Geo Insights. Jim Murphy is here. Also Ryan Financial, Mark is in here. And then my firm, what we do every once in a while on these meetings, particularly the larger ones, is that we'll come out and we'll put something together so that we can bring in more people. So we appreciate everyone coming in this morning. And then also the South Shore Development Economic Council, which is another subset of the Chamber of Commerce, is here as well. And I saw, let's see, I got, I think Wynn was in here, so Wynn's here. Also, I saw Bob Conrad earlier, who's on the board of the Chamber. And then I know Peter Foreman was, I sense in this area, he's the president, the CEO of the Chamber. And if folks don't know, I haven't seen it yet, but the Chamber now is successfully, is that the move done now?
In 2 weeks, if she kind of keeps her word.
Oh, which she will.
I don't want to put any pressure on you.
Not down.
And is that 1050? 1050. So that's over at exit 14. So what we're going to see going forward, and I think that it's going to be a real benefit for us, is that the digs in Quincy that we've known for so many years are now being supplanted by what we see as this very aggressive and forward-looking reach down Route 3 down into the South Shore. So it's interesting when you look at the life of the Chamber and how it started in Quincy. It's interesting that this move, I think, is reflective of a lot of the growth that you see at the Chamber. And being here in Hingham, it's no secret. I think we're ground zero of a lot of growth, a lot of expansion, a lot of business opportunities. And that's another opportunity for this group for today with the master plan to be able to be part of that expansion instead of just letting it all happen. HCAM is filming, so what we're going to do is I'm going to ask Mary Savage Dunham to come up and speak at the conclusion or towards the end. What we're going to do is we're going to open questions to the group. I've assured her that this is a very active and inquisitive group, so if you do, please do speak up so that it's captured on the television camera. And with that, I've got Mary Savage Dunham. Mary's been with us now for about 6 months, so it's been a lot of fun working with her. She's got two sides that I see. This is my view. She's got the permitting that I see her on, every other day probably. So she gets to process all of that, which is a lot of work. But also the other piece that I don't really have full recognition of, and today is going to change that, are these longer-term planning goals. So it's two different elements, and it's interesting. She's got some handouts, but I think you're going to figure out how and when to hand those out. And she's spoken to us last time when Selectman Irma Lauder was here, and she just introduced herself, so this is her opportunity to speak to the master plan. So with that, Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Thank you very much for having me here today, and what a great turnout. Who I am, I think, is probably the best way to start out. My name is Mary Savage Dunham. I am the Director of Community Planning here in Hingham. As Jeff said, I've been fortunate enough to be here for about 6 months now. So I've learned a number of things about the community, and there's still a great deal more that I have to learn. Looking around the room, some of you I know and I've worked with on various projects, and there's many of you that I don't know. So I would like to say that if there's anything that I can do for you, if you'd like to have a conversation about how the town can work in partnership with you, I encourage you to give me a call, come on in. I'm happy to sit down and find out how we can partner with you and support you in your endeavors. As Jeff mentioned, my role is very diverse. I staff the planning board, so projects that go through the permitting through planning, I'm involved with and I review. I'm also involved in an umbrella fashion with projects that go through the zoning board, as well as through conservation and historic, and just permitting in general in the building department. One of the really exciting things about my job is I'm kind of a step back with the exception of planning board, so I have the big picture to a sense of what's going on, and so when a project comes in, I'm typically aware of it, even if I'm not hands-on reviewing it. That can be very helpful for all of our customers because if we see a red flag or a potential obstacle, we can intervene in the early stages and say, why don't we sit down and talk about this and see what our choices are? Where do we go from here? So from that perspective, it's a very dynamic and exciting role. We are, aside from permitting, which is really our bread and butter, and I will say application load is very high, so I can give you a few news flashes on some of the things that are going on. But we also do have long range and broader scope projects. There's the Derby Street corridor where there's a lot of potential activity going on. We have a current application. We're also taking a look at possibly expanding the sewer capacity out there with the South Hingham Sewer District. We just kicked off a safety study actually on the Summer Street corridor, and that's down by the Rotary in the harbor front. And although Derby Street is a priority for the town, we have concerns about safety for pedestrians and vehicles, as well as access into the businesses in the harbor front down by the Rotary. And so just last week, town staff and interested parties met with DOT, and a safety study has been kicked off. And as some of you may know, that's the very start of a very long project, which is a corridor analysis, trying to get to the end and find out what are the solutions and what part will the state fund and what part would be left to the town to take on if there was a will to do so. So that's very exciting in the long range, I think, for the community, because there's a lot of work going on down at the harbor front with regard to redevelopment and capitalizing on another wonderful asset that the community has and sorting out how that ties into the downtown area. How do you connect everything for pedestrians as well as for economic development, recreation, what open space needs to be protected, what open space could be used in other ways. It's really a very exciting endeavor to be involved with at the start. Now, before I get to why I'm actually here today, I have a couple of news flashes. I did leave on the tables a bulletin about a house move. I'm fortunate enough to be involved in some historic preservation efforts as well within the department. And one of our great successes is that 99 Fort Hill Street was able to be saved. And that's a result of a great partnership of both the support of the residents, the boards and commissions, as well as the developers and town staff. This house is going to be put onto a flatbed, and it's going to be moved from 99 Fort Hill Street to Old Ordinary. And that is targeted to happen next week on June 25th, weather depending. So this is just a news flash for all of you that this will be pretty exciting, but there'll be street closures and possibly power outages. So heads up, and if it rains, it would be pushed to the next day. So if you know anyone that lives along that route, please let them know. So the main reason why I'm here today, or the biggest topic, and I was saying to Jeff, gosh, there's so much going on in town, I could certainly talk for a long time about any number of items. So I'm going to focus it onto the master plan process today. And to start out, what is a master plan? A master plan of development is really an umbrella policy document. It's like a guidance or a roadmap to where does the community see itself going to? Normally they're about a 10-year plan period. In some parts of the country they could be longer. Sometimes states do a 20-year plan or regions. But we here are doing a 10-year master plan, and we're passing out a master plan summary to you from the last time the plan was updated. And now what we're doing is we're looking back at that master plan and we're saying, what were the goals that were identified at that point in time? What has been accomplished? What hasn't been accomplished? If it wasn't accomplished, is it still a valid goal of the community, or is it something that because of market trends or opportunity costs perhaps isn't applicable anymore? Where should the town be focusing our energy? What are the priorities of our stakeholders, our residents, our businesses, everyone within the community, certainly our sister agencies? So the town of Hingham received a $60,000 grant through the Sustainable Communities Program from the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. That grant was received before I came on board, and it was waiting for me. And the reason for that funding is that the state has goals for the region as far as sharing the burden of transportation costs, of housing for all economic levels. And so the state sets benchmarks and goals and says, this is where we think we should be. They take a look at the state. That filters down to the region, and the region has established sustainable development principles. And they're trying to take a look at the state of Massachusetts with regard to regions and say, where does Hingham fit in with the broader region, the South Shore region? Where are you similar? Where are you not similar? And then they have goals for the region about creating jobs, creating housing, creating improved transportation nodes and transportation-oriented development. And then they want to have the conversation about where are Hingham's goals and desires aligned with that of the region, and where may they differ. And so as part of the grant money that we have, that is a dialogue that we are having because it's tied to the funding. I will say also tied to the funding is this metric that we have to do, and I'm going to pass it out, and it's a demographic survey, it's anonymous. It would really be helpful to us if you would be willing to fill it out, fold it in half, leave it on the table. I'll collect it and give it to the region. Essentially, because we're getting this money, the region also wants to know, who are we out there talking to? Who are we soliciting information from? And so I think I have someone that's going to help me pass this out, and if you could just do that for me, that would be really helpful. We would appreciate it. And with that, the master plan summary, and I'll stop talking soon and I'll take all the questions that you want. But the master plan summary, which I just passed out to you, is really a well-written summary. And it shows you within it that the last master plan had substantive elements revolving around land use, economic development, natural resources, open space, recreation, historic and cultural resources, housing and transportation, public facilities. And so at this point in time, we're doing a number of things to take a look at all those different elements. I'm going out and talking to groups like you and opening the floor up and asking you to tell us, what can we do for you? How can we help you be successful? What should the town be focusing on? What do you see as an opportunity for either the community or the region? What do you see as obstacles or perhaps issues for the community or the region? And we're trying to have dialogues, depending on what group we go to, around those certain substantive topic areas. But certainly, I'm a planner, so I believe that all information is helpful. So we're taking in any input that we can, and we're putting it into the hopper, reporting out to the planning board, and it should guide our future work. We should know from our feedback, where do we need to do more studies? What should we be focusing on? The planning board had a forum on June 17th revolving around housing. And housing, of course, cost of, availability of, and access to is a big issue in all communities in Massachusetts. I'm here today to talk about anything you'd like, but given the group that we have, I'd like to suggest that we just take a look at land use and economic development. And frequently people say, what is a master plan? What kind of things are you talking about? If you look to the recommendations that came out of the last master plan, under land use, the recommendations included protect Hingham's historic village character and from excessive growth and development. Carefully balance growth and economic benefits with the protection of our natural environment and character-defining cultural resources. Maintain the character of our neighborhoods. Reserve town-owned land for future community facilities. Manage growth. Limit development. Cluster commercial uses in strategic locations. So some of our questions are, is that still what Hingham desires? Is that where we should be going? Are we on target? Do we need to do some course correction? If we need to course correct, the next question then becomes, how do we do that? And as a regulator, there are tools. There are bylaws and ordinances, there's policies and incentives, and then there's just teamwork and everybody, working together and collaborating towards a common goal. And so once we know where the will of the community and our leading fathers want us to go, then we can start talking about how do we get there and what are realistic steps that we could take over the plan period to try to move in that direction. So under economic development, some of the recommendations were to support and strengthen local businesses that are beneficial to the community in terms of providing services, products, employment, and tax revenue. I will tell you that I've heard from a number of people that the town should continue to work in partnership with some of our smaller businesses and support them as they struggle with both the economy and competition from these larger businesses and big box stores. Not that big boxes don't have their own place in the economy, but perhaps not in Hingham's historic downtown. Another recommendation was to maintain high design standards for existing and new commercial developments. Other than the town center, major traffic producing economic development should be kept near regional highways. Now, I have heard input from people saying, has the town considered some transit-oriented development? Maybe there should be some housing opportunities for our people aged 25 to 35 that would love to live in Hingham but aren't yet able to afford it. Is that something that the town should look at? Would those be the people that would walk to our downtown and spend their money and help our downtown become more vibrant? Are those some of the same people that might work in some of the establishments that are very, very interested in coming to Hingham? And how does it all go together? How do you accomplish what you want to accomplish without changing what makes Hingham so special? So, in a roundabout way, that is what we're looking at under the master plan process. We're soliciting input. The planning board is doing this in a number of ways. As I said, I'm coming out and I'm talking to groups. Anybody who would like to can certainly come and talk to me, and I'm happy to sit down and talk to you about your needs and opinions for as long as you like. We have on your tables, there's a survey online, and this card tells you how to get there. If you don't have the card, you could go to the community planning webpage, and there's a link right from the community planning page, and it says, take our master plan survey. We're trying to get input from as many of the business owners and property owners in town as possible. The survey does close on June 28th. So I have plenty of cards here, and I have been mercilessly asking people to take them with them and hand them out at the soccer games, at the grocery store. Tell your wife, tell your friends, please take the survey, make your voice heard, because we really need to hear from everybody to have this be an effective process. The planning board is also having some initial forums. Our next one is Monday, June 24th, and we're going to be focusing on economic development, historic preservation, and open space and natural resources. And I will tell you, we're still in the information in part of the process. Over the summer, we'll be looking at all of that, and also I'll be working with the planning board on some other dialogues. Excuse me. The planning board is looking at things that are broader than the scope of the MAPC funded piece. The planning board is appreciative and excited about the value that that grant brings to this process. But then there's other things that there's interest in looking at in a broader context of the community. So we'll be working on a community facilities element. We're going to be looking at what are the town's facilities, what are the needs for those facilities to sustain them over the plan period. Do we have facilities that may be underutilized? Do we have facilities that might be overutilized? What are the opportunities that are out there that might be up for discussion if there was an interest in that? So we'll be looking at that. The planning board will also be taking a look at our bylaws, and based in part on the feedback that we hear from our stakeholders, having a conversation about if there's a need to adjust those bylaws to perhaps help accomplish a goal that was identified. And what I mean by that is that before I came here, the downtown overlay district regulation was put into place, and the goal was to encourage residential use downtown and certainly retail pedestrian-oriented activity. There have been successes from that, but there are some who would say that there hasn't been as much of a residential element downtown as was hoped to be. Is that something that people think is still important? And if so, how do we get there? That may be an example of revising a bylaw, because everything that you do has an effect. So you really have to think about, if we do this, we'll get this, but what might be an unintended consequence? So the planning board will be working on that with staff and the zoning board over the summer. And then by the fall, we hope to have some forums reporting out to you. We're going to report out our findings, kind of what we've heard, and bounce them back off of you and say, okay, this is what we heard. Tell us. Did we get it straight? Do we need any course correction ourselves? The master planning group is going to be taking some of the questions and feedback that they hear, and they're going to be doing some scenarios, some computer-generated what-if scenarios. So back around residential use downtown, they'll put our downtown information into a computer program. It's called Community Viz, and then they'll tweak the parameters, and they'll say, well, if you allowed residential density of this type, here's what it might look like. You know, if you do this, then this is what you might get. And it helps put some of the comments that we get into a more visual display, so that, you know, you may want something, but sometimes when you see how it would actually look physically, it's not always exactly the same. So that will be coming out in the fall as well. And really our goal is to start having a dialogue about goals and objectives and our guiding policies and principles in the fall, so that if there's any budget implications or tasks that may want to be prioritized, we can be aware of that during the budget process. And I'm not saying that there is, but you know, if, you know, for example, if we needed to do a market study, do we want to consider allocating money for something? Those types of things. So with that, I am happy to talk about anything that you'd like, but I really want to hear, you know, I'm not here to just talk to you, I want to hear from you. What can we do to help you? What are the issues?
It's already used in Hingham. We have the industrial commission, the district commission, the stormwater commission, traffic safety. Seems to be a lot of pieces that could be pulled together. There's no design review process per se that the zoning planning board has have that. Design pad and commissions that. It just seems to be conflict, and I agree that there's an opportunity in downtown Hingham that
Yes. So I will summarize the question, and the first part of the question was, has there been any further discussion about streamlining some of the regulatory process in the groups as far as the HDIC and the historic commissions to try to get a more streamlined flow within the process? And then the second part of the question was that there does seem to be somewhat of a need for more incentives within the downtown area, that there's perhaps an opportunity for additional movement down there towards where the desired goals are. With regard to streamlining the groups, I believe that the first step in that was the reorganization of the department and really creating the position that I have. And one of my roles is to try to keep things moving and streamline things as much as I can inside and encourage and support a collaborative working environment. And to that end, I will say we are doing that. We don't have design review except that which happens during either a zoning board process or during a historic process. And for the record, there wasn't a suggestion that we have design review added to the planning board. I am open, always open to talking about how we can do things better and more efficiently. So there hasn't been any additional current talk about streamlining of the process. I will tell you that internally we are moving towards an electronic permit tracker system, and we're trying to move away from having people walk from department to department with their permits. We'd like the permits to come in either online or at our counter, and then have them go electronically to the parties that need to see them. And so we are working diligently on that, with certainly technology sometimes helping and sometimes slowing things down a little bit, but we are committed to moving towards an online permitting system. I'm open to other suggestions if you have them, and we can certainly talk about them.
This report is great, the summary, and now my understanding is you're going to create a new master plan.
Has someone done a performance review on this one? There were tons of recommendations. There's not a lot of numerical type of things of performance review, but have we established whether we're achieving these recommendations for the past 10 years?
That's a good question. The question was a performance review on the recommendations from the last 10 years. And I will tell you, I have a spreadsheet in my office that I'm working on that has all of the goals and recommendations, and it was started before I came here. I certainly cannot take all the credit for it. And it's cataloging what has been accomplished and what hasn't. And I'm grateful for that because certainly I don't have the historical knowledge. So I'm working to fill that in and bring that to the planning board, and we'll put that on our website hopefully within 2.5 weeks, and that will be up there for all of you to see. So we are looking at that. And then our focus should be the things that weren't done, do we still need to? And the things that were done, are they truly done?
For instance, the Hingham journalist, we have
The front page article on the master plan. Here you have a figure of 2.3% on the 40B housing kind of thing. Where do we stand relative to that 10% goal on that? Since my understanding from a prior speaker was this, for instance, this facility, Linden Ponds was considered low density by the state and then reversed that after it was in account. So where do we stand relative to that?
Question revolves around what is our current percentage of affordable housing. And I will tell you that that's complicated. So as you know, but the state's position is that we are currently at approximately 6.4%. And there is some dialogue going on now as to whether or not Linden Ponds should be counted in full or not. If Linden Ponds were indeed counted, we would be above our 10%. And so that's currently under discussion with state agencies at the moment.
My comment, if it relates to the timing of the master plan, going through the summary, it strikes me that the master plan that's out there now predates Derby Street Shops, predates the shipyard, predates the zoning changes, obviously, from 2010, and it seems to me when I read it, I remember reading the original one, but it seems very insular and protective and maintained and preserved, and it seems as though naturally these corridors developed, from, let's say, Derby Street area, going through to Weymouth, and then also into our industrial park and Sharp Street, and then also from 3A, which is now the shipyard. Those appear to have been developed under what were these more protective goals. And I think that going forward, it behooves the town to embrace the reality of sophistication of uses. It's interesting that they are next to these transportation sources, which is one of the big goals. So they're there. That goal appears to me 10 years later to have been met. And I think looking forward, the town needs to embrace that and to look at what the fits are for the uses, the sophistication, and make sure that there's a match. Because I can tell you that I find lumps and bumps in our zoning code. Recently, we found something off of Sharp Street, which is clearly an unintended circumstance, and it had to do with an excellent effort by the town in 2010 to update the usage codes, but there are these little, I'll call them bumps in the road that were unanticipated, and now we're starting to feel them, and they're having real impacts on businesses, excellent businesses looking to get into Hingham, very excited, people in town excited, but we're working through some of those issues. So I think the message that I would like our business council to send and to be heard is that it's going to happen regardless. Let's make it so that it's planned, it's anticipated. All of the acreage, we have an excellent rezone Bristol's areas all the way to the quarries, which goes out to Route 53, Cushing Street, Whiting Street, but to proactively work with them, and I know it goes both ways, that it's important that everybody get together, have a plan, so that it's developed in a way that's efficient and makes sense for the community. So I think it's not in place of the insular protective. I think that's an important element. Also, echoing what Sebi said, we're interested. We actually live near the downtown, and we have conversations that it could be so much more. And it's obvious that having disparate owners of different parcels has always been a problem, if you will, with downtown, because there isn't necessarily an overall owner with a vision. So you've got a lot of different directions. I think that's just such an opportunity, and I wouldn't approach it from a protective, coddling standpoint. I would try. It takes some boldness, but I would try to be proactive in coming up with a vision. I think that the heritage, it's beautiful what's going in the original Derby building. Love the stonework. I think that's going to be exciting. I was very encouraged in the town meeting. Passed the funding for that after 30 seconds of discussion. I think that's excellent. And I think that that's going to be one element of approach to breathe some life into the downtown. I think the residential is an absolutely excellent component. And me personally, I would like to have seen some more service type uses downtown, because I do have a lot of clients who, folks who come into town, think the downtown is an excellent location for more service oriented, but they're getting edged out by a predilection towards retail. And I don't know what the ultimate answer is to that, but at some point there should be some recognition that there is a desire to get some of those services in as well.
Okay, so just cap, if I may.
Sorry, I don't want
Next time you can come right up to the microphone. So the comments that we have is that this last plan was written prior to the Derby Street shops, prior to the shipyard, really before a great burst of development and activity within Hingham. that certainly has changed the feel of portions of our community. And to some, this master plan here may seem insular and protective, yet this growth was able to come and flourish in Hingham despite or in concert with this plan. The suggestion is that the town should embrace the reality that uses are becoming more sophisticated and take a look at our use code within our zoning regulations and determine if there's gaps or there needs to be flexibility or provisions to, if something comes up that isn't spelled out there, how do we work with that without having that become a speed bump? If I paraphrase you incorrectly, please jump right up. And, you know, the message that we were given is that change and development is going to happen. Let's anticipate it, let's have it be planned the way that the community would like it to be, and let's be supportive of our business zones. The town should work proactively together, and the suggestion is that it would be great to breathe some more life into the downtown area, help the downtown create a vision, and have more residential uses downtown, and perhaps consider service uses downtown. Right now, there is a shift towards supporting more of the retail uses, and so perhaps a dialogue about what the appropriate mix of uses to have a vibrant downtown is an appropriate conversation to have, and perhaps something that we should try to look at and then help guide us to where we want to go.
Next time over, and,
Which town would that be?
Cohasset.
Okay.
Yeah. And we put together a zoning bylaw for TOD. Does Hingham have a TOD bylaw per se?
We don't.
Provision?
We don't. Particularly, I do understand that it did come up before town meeting within the past 5 years, and it failed. There have been some conversations about TOD, and I think the last time that it came up was when the train was coming through, and there was a lot of passionate dialogue around that. This may be a conversation that could happen again. I think that we heard the other night that there is support for some TOD from some segments of the population, but I think the biggest question is the same as it always is. Where will it be? What will it look like? And what scale? What's the density?
Almost by definition, the TOD has to be close to the walking distance to the train stop. So that kind of.
What's available. So we were able to actually solve the problem in the Cohasset train station of 3A by creating an overlay district, specifically sitting right on top of the light industrial district. And that enabled us to not violate any residential zones or anything else. And we passed that in the town with the full town meeting support, including changing the parking bylaw on 3A in about 6 months. So it's possible, I think, if we can find the right spot and find the right development to encourage some housing. That was a 52,000 square foot building sitting on 16,000 feet of retail and then 16 apartment units. So it really solved the problem, increased the tax revenues on that 5-acre piece of land by a multiple of 5. So it's all good.
So the comment, just summarize, was to take a look at transit-oriented development, and we've just heard an example how Cohasset has a successful TOD development. TOD is possible, and it can encourage increased tax revenue as well as provide housing opportunities. I will tell you that one of the suggestions that I heard was, would the town consider some kind of development like that over by the DPW building where all the buses park? Might that be an appropriate location for some kind of housing facility? How would that work? Just a very general, comment. So it's out there. If people have suggestions, please bring them forward. Bring them to the planning board. Come to our forums.
Just a follow-up, we use the state's
Standard TOD bylaw format as the beginning of discussion in the town, and then we modified it based on a negotiation with a combination of the zoning board, the planning board, and the advisory committee, and then ultimately the select board. passed unanimously in the town.
That's wonderful. So we heard it's a standard TOD bylaw which Cohasset used as a jumping off point, and it's been very successful. And so certainly if there's a will within the community for that type of thing, then I'm here to help, move it forward. Yes.
Yeah, I think Jeff covered almost all points.
I'll work on the margins a little bit. I would say that TOD does usually mean near rail, but it can also be any other transportation node. And you do have a transportation node up on Route 3 where the commuter parking lot is. And we're less than, if you use the half-mile radius for TOD, which is what the state tends to look at, we're not all that far from Weymouth either, from the air station. So that's a possibility as well. But one of a meeting that happened in this room that I think was very formative for the town involved public and private partnerships, where it was here, I believe, a few years ago that Peter delivered this discussion, this review that the South Shore Chamber had done about highway transportation needs in Derby Street, which began, it was actually going before that, this partnership with the town that I think has led to great progress, both theoretically about the town's attitude about development in general, and very practically about how it's managed things, and by leveraging state assistance. So interestingly enough, for those of us who remember the 2002 plan, I think the themes are pretty good. The themes they're the same themes, but with a very different, maybe in a different key. And so I would urge that we think a lot about the public-private partnership aspects of this, both how to work with the agencies like the South Shore Chamber and the Business Council as you go through this. We are, as you're using right now, we're a venue for getting people's ideas back, but we might be a venue for helping implement things. And so that brings me to my second point, which really is the infrastructure. When we sat here 4 years ago, whatever it was, 5 years ago, we talked about the limiting factors for economic development in at least parts of Hingham, and they are water, sewer, and transportation. They were at the time water, sewer, and transportation. Transportation remains a problem, but we've done some work on it. You've done a great job on sewer, and it seems to me that the sewer initiative really needs to fold into this master planning incredibly much. The gap that leads to my question is Aquarian and water supply, and Aquarian, without putting, as far as I know, any new pipes in the ground, seems to be saying they have a lot more water now than they said they had 5 years ago. That is a limiting factor on new growth, residential or commercial. How are you linking them into the master plan?
To just paraphrase, we heard that transit-oriented development is something that we could look at around all of our different transportation hubs within a half mile, and that also over the planning period there's been a great increase in public and private partnerships, and certainly a lot of that has been around transportation needs, but those partnerships are very valuable and beneficial and should be continued and increased. We heard that some of the themes are felt to be the same, but maybe there's a different key or emphasis associated with those themes moving forward over our next 10 years because of what's happened over the past 10 years. We're encouraged to look at partnerships with both the state and the region, and I would say that to that end, I do agree. I think that there's great opportunities for all avenues, whether it's transportation, economic development, tourism initiatives, marketing ourselves, positioning ourselves in partnership with our regional neighbors to say, look what not only Hingham has to offer, look what our area has to offer. I think it's a great story to tell, and I've heard that from other people. I think that that's a very valid comment. And the next part of the question was relating to infrastructure and a statement that water and sewer and transportation are limiting factors on development, economic development and housing development. And where are we going from here? The town is working on sewer infrastructure now. They heard what was said at town meeting, and there's a team of us working on the overall sewer policies within town, and we should be having some public meetings around that effort coming up during the summer and fall, and those will be evening meetings and they'll be well advertised, so stay tuned for that. And a lot of that effort, I will say, is really just clarifying the information that we have and kind of where we are now, making it more accessible, perhaps making some minor corrections, and then looking forward and saying, where do we go from here? And in particular, moving forward, South Hingham with the sewer infrastructure needs and the combination of the location and the desire of that area to grow as an economic hub and the limiting factors of the burdened transportation system and perhaps lack of sewer or water. It's all coming together now, and the town is aware of that, and we're moving forward on a number of fronts to try to resolve some of those issues. All of those matters will be looked at within our community facilities element of the plan, and I expect that they will have themes or tendrils through the rest of the plan because it really is all connected. And when you talk about economic development, you're also really talking about open space and recreation, because really there's a lot of companies that want to come and locate someplace where their employees are happy. And where are the employees happy? Someplace where there's a great park network, there's a bikeway system, there's trails and beaches and playgrounds and great schools. So when you talk about supporting economic development, you're also really talking about open space and recreation and community services and education, and what our downtown looks like, what are our housing opportunities. It's all connected. So that's a great point, and if you don't see it done, you just keep us right on track.
Again, kind of on the margins, but in marketing, it occurred to me that one of the big lacks, I think, that we have in town that I've come up against repeatedly lately is the fact that we really don't have, and I do not know what our bylaws say about this, but I understand that there's some resistance to allowing things like bed and breakfasts and hotels in town. They're clustered right now out on the Route 28, three out that area. But it seems to me, I can tell you the number of times I've been on a boat to Boston and have actually spoken with people who are staying in Situate and are taking because they're tourists from all around the country. They don't want to stay in Boston because it's too expensive, it's the city, whatever. They love the idea of being out. They looked around. Situate and Hull were the two options to stay in a nice, pretty part of town where you could actually walk outside and do something that a tourist would like to do, and then take the boat to Boston. It's a fabulous opportunity, especially now that we do have all of these transportation ways to get into Boston. And I think that's an untapped market that Hingham is perfectly situated for.
Comment is that the comment is sending kudos to Situate and Cohasset and Hull for their bed and breakfasts and hotel type of opportunities, and that when we're looking at tourism and marketing and bringing people in, that's something that perhaps Hingham should focus a little more on. And the question is, why is there resistance to that? I will tell you that bed and breakfasts have actually been embraced within town. There's been a bylaw change prior to my coming here. We actually just, within the past 2.5 months, another one was approved on Emerald Street. And so a bed and breakfast is a wonderful way for people that have that passion to also stay in their large historic house and perhaps enter into a second career or a first career. So I agree with you. It is a great opportunity. Hotels, is another question for the planning board and really for the community to look at and say, where might that be appropriate and what size and massing should that be? And that's a dialogue that certainly we could have with the planning board if there's an interest in that. Yes.
I just think we should all be mindful. Hingham has very much a senior population now. My husband likes to say, 60's the new 40, 70's the new 50, but Hingham has a large population over 60. And I know that seniors in Hingham do not want to move out of Hingham, and they don't all live at Linden Ponds. We happen to live in the Meadows, which is one of the few areas where it's small enough that people move in. When something comes on, the market in Meadows, people flock. Because it's small, they can live in Hingham, they can be near their families. And for some reason, Hingham has not been open to creating, obviously the Meadows would never be done again because of the open space there, but I'm always surprised that there have been suggestions in the past, way long time ago. Maryknoll was at one time considered a place that perhaps units for people in their 60s, over 55. So I'm always concerned that Hingham doesn't look at that market, keeping the people who want to be here. Anybody who goes to the senior center or even gets near the place knows that it is full constantly. The library is full constantly with people who are seniors and they want to stay in Hingham. So I just bring that up for a master plan because this is a group of people that do a lot for the community as we know.
And so that as town employees and town leaders, we need to be mindful of the senior population over 60. We need to look at opportunities to create housing opportunities, smaller scale, affordable units to help enable our older residents to stay in town where they have their connections instead of being forced to move out of town. And I will tell you, I went to a men's breakfast at the senior center and I did hear about that quite a bit. Senior citizens do add a great deal of value to our community. They are volunteers, they are community helpers, they are mentors, and the senior center and the library and how full they are all the time is a testament to our rising senior population. So that's a good point.
With that, we'll conclude the questions. I want to thank Mary for coming in. Get near the microphone. We're going to be concluding. Excellent questions. I want to thank Mary for coming in, everybody for the excellent questions, the excellent comments. It was our goal, my goal today to give her a list of items that she could add into her discussion. It's extremely important, as you can see from the last go-around, once the master plan is issued, that's, at least for the last time, that's 10 years of guidance that the planning board, some of the other town departments have. So 10 years goes by quickly, and things have a way of developing consistent with it, contemporaneous with it, and it's a very, very important element. She has the cards, so if there are additional comments, I think that you can go in and, does that have a survey element to it?
Right, there's a survey online. Please go in and do it. And if you'd like more of our cards to hand out to any of your people, I have plenty. Please take them, pass them out.
And so, so you've got them, so I'm going to encourage you to do that as well. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming in this morning. I recognize most, if not all, of the faces, but if anyone out there is not a member of either the Business Council or the Social Chamber, this has been an opportunity for folks to come in, kick the tires, see what we're about, and it's interesting. Apparently, a lot of people are pleased because we're seeing excellent turnouts with the group, excellent feedback, and we really do appreciate that. There are some other upcoming events over in Braintree, and I'm sure Frank Marinelli will be there. They're holding a Pizza Palooza on June 24th from 5 to 8, and that's at the Braintree Town Hall, and it looks as though that's a local pizza competition. So that's something that, again, is on for the 24th in Braintree at their Town Hall. Gotcha. So the 27th between 5 and 8, and that's over at Braintree Town Hall, which is over next to Thayer. We've got the South Shore Chamber. We've got our summer outing, which will be at the Shipyard. That's July 19th, and that's between 5 and 7. Where in the Shipyard is that going to be, Eric?
Right by the outdoors by the beer works.
Okay, so between Almanove and, okay, excellent. So that's going to be on the lawn area. That's July 19, 5 to 7. I guarantee that evening, if the weather's great, that's going to be a fantastic take. The Shipyard has really taken off. That public space, as they call it, has been very popular, and by July 19, that place will be hopping guaranteed. And then finally, the Abington Business Council is holding their summer sizzler. That's at the Abington Ale House patio, and that's down on Route 18. And that looks like August 6th, and that's from 5 to 7. And again, Abington Business Council at the Abington Ale House. And with that, are there any other issues, anything to bring up that we should be aware of going into the summer? Okay, and what we'll do is, everyone have a great summer. We typically, we allow everyone to go away, and when you all come back, we'll have a full slate of some news, some things to talk about, and we'll go from there. So thanks very much, everyone. We appreciate it.